I am infertile. My ex-husband and I tried everything to have kids, but it just never happened. He divorced me, went and married someone younger who was able to give him a kid, and from what I gather, they're expecting a second child together. It hurts like hell seeing someone else have what I couldn't. I get frustrated with myself sometimes and with family blaming me for basically everything. I turn to my friends for support, especially Alessia. She's in the same infertility boat as me, but she and her husband are currently trying IVF, hoping it'd work. Alessia asked me for help to pay for her upcoming IVF cycle. I agreed to write her a check of $12,000. I really wanted to help her, and the money came with no strings attached. I wrote the check and gave it to her last week. She was very appreciative of it. The very next day, I got a sudden message from a mutual friend, Carol, with a screenshot of the conversation she had with Alessia. Turns out she and Alessia were talking about the next IVF cycle, and Alessia said she hoped the cycle would work because she didn't want to end up divorced and having her husband go marry someone younger and have a baby with them, and another one on the way, while she's alone and without a family at 35. She's 32. I was stunned and hurt. I knew she meant me here. But I did not confront her. I simply contacted my bank and canceled the check. In the evening, Alessia called to ask why I canceled the check, and I told her. She went batshit, saying she didn't mean it that way and that she thought that this was somewhat an inside joke between desperate infertile women. She came over with her husband the next day begging I write another check, but I refused. An argument ensued and her husband thought I wasn't being supportive of her like when she supported me throughout my struggles. She left crying and we haven't talked since then. Her husband keeps reminding me, while repeatedly calling Carol a toxic snake, of the date of the next cycle, saying they can't have it after I took the money that was supposed to pay for it back. Some friends thinks I'm being oversensitive. Carol's on my side telling me to tell them to go to hell, but I feel so bad about it. What I've done might just damage our 15 years of friendship. Maybe I shouldn't have canceled it, but I just felt so offended by what she said about me and how she basically mocked my unfortunate circumstances. So my oldest daughter, who I'll call May, is 16. She has a job, has had it for about 5 months. Out of all the children, she's the most mature. She's also good at saving, but she rarely spends dollar on things she enjoys and instead keeps it in her bank account. My husband wanted to have her start paying her phone bill immediately. It would have been $50 monthly, but I said no, and eventually compromised to the beginning of October. Note, my husband, her stepfather, is very money tight, and he tells her to pay for everything she wants. Now, I agree with this somewhat, as she should be monetarily responsible so she's ready for college, but he wants her to pay for everything. Anytime she asks for something, he'll respond with "You have money, buy it yourself." Now, fast forward to today. May has been out of town on a trip with her class, and she was going to be gone for a week. Because this is a national event that happens every year and they're in the city, everything is very expensive. She has a credit card under her name that is connected to my account. And I said she could use it for her meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, but snacks and souvenirs she would have to buy on her own. She called earlier and we were talking while my husband was in the room. She started complaining about how expensive everything was, and she jokingly said she was going to go bankrupt once she returned from her trip. I told her not to worry about it, and if she needed she could use her credit card for whatever. Then, my husband pipes in and says, "Stop guilting your mother to give you money. Whatever you want, you can buy yourself." She was quiet for a moment before saying that she wasn't asking for anything, and then he repeated, "Don't guilt your mother. How can you be morally okay with that?" She said she wasn't calling to ask for money, that she just wanted to complain and that she was going to hang up. I took her off speaker to tell her it was fine, but she just swore up and down she wasn't trying to guilt me, and that she was just going to pretend the call never happened and that it was fine. And then she hung up. I was so pissed. I yelled at him, told him he was being ridiculous and that she was still a child. I left before he could respond. I'm still angry, she apologizes to me every time she buys a meal because she thinks it's too much. I've noticed that she buys her own breakfast, and only spends money on lunch and dinner even though I've said she can do all three. I'm angry and I don't know what to do. Am I the asshole? I've been terrified of dogs since I was young. My husband knew, but I don't think he realized how bad it was until recently. He got our son a dog, and at first, I was angry, but he promised it wouldn't come near me, and our son was really happy, so I agreed they could keep it as long as it was kept away from me. For 2 months it was fine and I barely thought about the dog being so close, but a few days ago the dog came inside and it freaked me out. I told my husband he had to get rid of it now since he broke his promise, and I didn't trust him to keep it away from me anymore. My husband doesn't want to get rid of it because our son is very attached to it already and the dog is harmless according to him. He wants me to let him take me around the dog so that I'll stop being so scared of it, but I've refused and told him it had to go. We argued and he told me that if I wanted it gone, I would have to take it myself. My in-laws came to visit yesterday and my mother-in-law asked me if something had happened between us because I'm still angry at him and she noticed. I told her about the dog and she told him off and said she taught him better than to traumatize his pregnant wife. Now my husband is upset at me because he thinks I only told his parents to force him to do what I wanted and that we'd hurt our son if we got rid of the dog now. Am I the problem here? Last week Friday my son got his phone confiscated at school. He was mucking around with it during class and the school rules are clear about phone usage during class without permission, so I totally understood. The normal protocol is that the phone would go to the office where it would be returned to the student at the end of the day or the next day. His teacher however apparently forgot to stop by the office before going home after school, so she accidentally took it home with her and roughed some negligence. The phone broke in the hands of her toddler. Admittedly she was very upfront about it and even came to our house personally to tell us what happened and apologize, which I respect. She suggested the repayment plan for the phone and offered an old phone of hers for him in the meantime, but it was essentially a brick with a screen. After she left I sent an email to the school about everything simply because I think it's something the school should also be involved in since she's a teacher and easily took home a confiscated device, albeit by mistake. Received a response Monday morning apologizing for what happened and promising to address the issue. So my sister-in-law works at the high school but smokes with the teachers at the junior school, which is where she bumped into this teacher who was pissed and said that we were being assholes reporting it since she already promised to pay for the phone, offered an alternative, and is a good teacher, so we're messing with her career unnecessarily. So yeah, am I the assholes? We were deciding what to eat and she really wanted to go to this restaurant. I was on board with it, but I am super picky and had no idea what this restaurant had. We get there, I look at the menu, and nothing looks even semi-good. For example, all of the sandwiches had wheat bread only and I hate wheat. Anyway, I let her order her food and when the lady asks what I want, I told her I wasn't eating. I told my girlfriend I wanted her to enjoy the meal and I was happy to be there. My girlfriend got so mad, got up and left. I left with her and asked what the big deal was. She insists that I need to be there eating with her. We ended up going somewhere else together, but it irritated me. Am I in the wrong here? Jessica and I are getting married next year. We've been doing the wedding planning, got places and things picked out. It's been going good until we hit this snag. Abby is Jessica's best friend and maid of honor. Both love dogs, they both have dogs. When we started talking about the wedding, Jessica told me all about this plan they both had, that when each of them got married, they'd have doggy wedding ceremony between their dogs and their future husband's dogs at the same time. I don't have a dog. Not a dog guy, so there is no potential for that to happen. I like her dog enough and let her do what she will with him, and I do get him treats and toys sometimes. I thought that would be the last I heard of that. She and Abby started to talk about how cute it would be to include both of their dogs in our wedding party. Not my thing, but I have friends and family that have done something similar and I want her to enjoy the day, so I said okay, thinking they'd just be up at the altar or something like that. Nope. They want their dogs to get married during our wedding. I wasn't too keen on the idea and raised concerns like what would they do with both dogs for the rest of the day? What if the venue we picked doesn't allow pets? We went back and forth and I agreed that they could do their dog ceremony at the end of our ceremony. Couple weeks later Jessica and Abby bring it up again, they want parts of the reception to be dedicated to their dog's friendship. Shit like puppy picture slideshow. A cake for them, dog-friendly favor bags because they want their friends and her family to bring their dogs too. I told them no and that I already made one compromise on the issue and don't want a bunch of dogs around for our entire wedding and reception and that if they did that, we'd have to find an all-new venue probably. I reminded her that she was near the limit of what she could contribute toward our wedding funds and I'd be paying the rest, and I don't want to pay extra for stuff for a bunch of dogs. They both said that this was really important to them, so I told Jessica point blank, we can stick to what we originally agreed to. Or she and Abby could have their costly party that allows dogs by themselves and we just get married at the courthouse by ourselves. Abby told Jessica I was being manipulative and making ultimatums and wanted her to go stay at her place until Opie pulls his head out of his ass. Jessica didn't go, but we're still going back and forth. She still wants things her way and feels I'm being too selfish. I don't think I am because I want an enjoyable wedding and marriage with Jessica, not Jessica and Abby and their pets. Am I the asshole? I picked up running as a new hobby and was going for a run outside today. It's hot where I live, Southern California. My dad saw my running clothes, a running sports bra and Nike shorts, and made rude comments about it like how it's so revealing and that you can see my cleavage and inner thighs in it. He insisted I change out of it. I called him a creepy pervert for making these comments about my body when I'm literally just in standard exercise clothes, and by the way men go on runs shirtless all the time. He got really upset and is now not talking to me or making eye contact with me. I asked him what his deal is and he said I was extremely offensive and unfair to him and that he'd never thought I'd call him something like that, so now I feel bad but I don't feel like I was wrong to say what I was feeling at the time. Am I the asshole? Do I owe him an apology? I have Spanish in the morning from 7:15, 8:45 Eastern Standard Time. Every morning since the beginning of the school year, my teacher insists that the policy of her classroom is for her to open the door, and her only. No student shall open the door unless they're leaving the classroom. I sit right next to the door. Students often arrive to school late and because they're late they must wait for her to open the door, no issue, right? However, she leaves students outside for 10 to 15 minutes at a time, no matter how many times the student knocks. She will not open the door. People end up missing the lecture and misses the instruction for the assignment. She then gets angry at the students for not understanding the lesson or assignment. Today we were going over a study guide for an upcoming test and there was a knock on the door. I told her that someone was at the door. She said they must wait. I start a timer on my laptop and wait. About 6 minutes later, the student knocks again. She said they must wait. When the timer hit 15 minutes in, she said the same thing. When the timer hit 20 minutes, I opened the door. Immediately, she starts to yell at me, telling me to not open the door because it's policy and there was a faculty meeting about it. Other teachers allow their students to open the door. I think this was a lie. She told me I disrespected her and her rules even though she constantly disrespects myself and my peers. I finally snapped at her. I told her she was a sad, miserable woman who must have constant control over us teens because she has no control over herself and her life. She asked me for my mom's phone number and I think she's going to try and call her because I opened the door and snapped at her. I have Spanish in the morning from 7:15, 8:45 Eastern Standard Time. Every morning since the beginning of the school year, my teacher insists that the policy of her classroom is for her to open the door, and her only. No student shall open the door unless they're leaving the classroom. I sit right next to the door. Students often arrive to school late and because they're late they must wait for her to open the door, no issue, right? However, she leaves students outside for 10 to 15 minutes at a time, no matter how many times the student knocks. She will not open the door. People end up missing the lecture and misses the instruction for the assignment. She then gets angry at the students for not understanding the lesson or assignment. Today we were going over a study guide for an upcoming test and there was a knock on the door. I told her that someone was at the door. She said they must wait. I start a timer on my laptop and wait. About 6 minutes later, the student knocks again. She said they must wait. When the timer hit 15 minutes in, she said the same thing. When the timer hit 20 minutes, I opened the door. Immediately, she starts to yell at me, telling me to not open the door because it's policy and there was a faculty meeting about it. Other teachers allow their students to open the door. I think this was a lie. She told me I disrespected her and her rules even though she constantly disrespects myself and my peers. I finally snapped at her. I told her she was a sad, miserable woman who must have constant control over us teens because she has no control over herself and her life. She asked me for my mom's phone number and I think she's going to try and call her because I opened the door and snapped at her.